What's up, bassers? Today we're going to be looking at the piece Antigone, also known as Antigone. Now this piece is a challenging one, so let's take a look at the big picture and then we're going to get into some of these details and some of these hot spots with tricky rhythms and tricky accidentals. So first of all, we are in the key of D minor. Now D minor, we only have one flat in the key signature and it is our B. So a lot of this piece is actually going to be played not in first position, but in half position. That means keeping our finger closer to what's called the nut of the bass so that we can hit that B flat with our first finger. That means a lot of our Fs, our Cs, and our B flats on the G strings will be played not with our second finger, but with our fourth finger. So here's B flat, C, D, E, F. Throughout the piece, we will alternate between playing these notes, B flat on the G string, F on the D string, and C on the A string, with our fourth finger and our second finger. It's really just about where you are in that moment and what feels comfortable to you. We also have a lot of accidentals in this piece, so make sure to go through your part and circle any notes that you know are going to be tricky for you. All right, let's hop right in. The first thing I want to take a look at is the note at measure 4. It says slightly spaced just above the notes. So that means this is going to be a marcato type stroke, strong on the front, but with a gap between each quarter note so that we have that driving momentum and it doesn't become wishy-washy. So let me just give you an example of that. Here's measure 4 through 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice I'm not playing the note for the full duration. I'm attacking and I'm moving my bow across the string to get in position for the next note. At measure 8, we have a high E, so I just want to point this out. Usually we play the D with our fourth finger, but in this piece we're going to be playing a lot of Ds with our first finger. So take the time to find that and get comfortable. Check it against your open D. And once you have that, realize that your first finger is D, your second finger is E flat, which comes up later, and your fourth finger is E natural. Now, a quick way to find this note on the bass. Most basses have what's called a D neck. That means if you take your left hand position, your proper bass technique, and slide down to this bend in the neck, the note under your first finger should be a D. Slide down, my thumb is right in position. Let's see what's under my first finger. Yeah, pretty close. So here's measure 6, 7, and 8 in slow motion. 1 and 2 and with some space. It's a big gap from the F to the high E, but just keep your first finger on the G string as you slide up and you'll find it. Moving on, we have a super tricky fingering at 27, measure 27. So usually we play B flat on our G string, right here with second finger and first finger A. But because we're going from a D to a B flat, we're actually going to turn this into a string crossing. So check out that D. We're going to play it first finger, and then we're going to play B flat on the D string. That's right under your second finger in the same position. So take a closer look at that. Here's D. And in the same position, second finger on the D string. Beautiful. You're actually going to have to slur over a string cross in that section in order to get that fast enough. So here is measure 27 in slow motion. 3 and 4 and 1 and. Notice I'm also using fourth finger on the D string, basically replacing my first finger, which is on the A, with my fourth finger. For me, it's just easier than trying to jump all the way back up the neck on the G string, but it's really up to you. You could play that A on the G string as well. 37 is where things start to get crazy. Check out these accidentals. We got an E flat, a G flat, and even a D flat, back to back to back. So just take a look at that fingering. We have our first finger on E flat, and we're actually going to slide up to G flat, F sharp, with our first finger. Now the reason we want to use our first finger for G flat is because it puts us in position for the D flat on the G string. So E flat, G flat, D flat on the G string. And of course C natural second finger. That way we only have to do one shift instead of 3 different shifts scrambling for those accidentals. Let's try 37 together in slow motion. 3 and 4 and 1 and 1 and 4 and 1 and. Here's another tip. When you reach for that D flat, keep your first finger on the G flat. That'll help you find it. So moving on to measure 47, we have D sharp, F sharp. That's the same exact notes as E flat and G flat, which we just played in measure 37. But this time we're going to use a different fingering. Play D sharp with your first finger, F sharp with your second finger, and this time C with your fourth finger. And the reason is we got to catch that A with the first finger. That puts us perfectly in position for 48, which is B natural, and that keeps us back in first position. At measure 61, a few things happen. First of all, we have a tempo change. We're no longer at 120 BPM, we're at 60 BPM. So it's basically halftime. Instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The other thing that happens at 61 is we have an SFP, a sforzando piano. Basically, a sforzando is just a really strong attack, almost as loud as you can play it, as long as it has like a beautiful sonorous sound to it. And immediately after we attack, we go to piano. So 61 is going to sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1. So notice a lot of strong attack, and then I'm just going to hold out that note for, of course, the next 3 bars. It's almost vicious, but it's not impolite. It's not scratchy. And the way you get that sound is you set your bow on the string, make sure you have that contact, that grip, and instead of pulling with just the wrist, I'm going to actually whip my arm so that all that energy goes into attacking the string. So check it out one more time. 3 and 4 and. I'm really prepping for that beat. You can see my shoulders come up and those back muscles are gonna pull my arm back, almost as if I'm elbowing somebody behind me who's standing too close in line. I hate that. So let's try that one last time. Try it with me this time. 61, and we're gonna set the bow on the string. Make sure you got that good grip, and then we're gonna whip it. And immediately after we get that loud bite, we're gonna go piano. Here we go. 3 and 4 and. Pretty cool, right? At measure 88, we are back to tempo 1. That means we're back to 120 BPM, and we're now counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Exactly twice as fast as we just were in the slow section. Now, this is one of the most intimidating looking passages, but it's not actually as hard as it looks. Let's take a look at those 16th notes. They're all basically going to be in first position, which we're all very comfortable with. So the notes are G, A, G, F, E, F, E, C. G, A, G, F, E, F, E, C. Now the way we get this fast is to play them in order and stay really close to the string. So this is what we're gonna do. Go ahead, set your bow on the string, and we're really gonna focus on having that grip, that connection with the string where we can wiggle it a little bit without stressing our hand and without losing control of the string. And then we're just gonna pop between each note. Take a close look. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So what I'm doing is I'm using a sort of jerkiness in my forearm, but my wrist is nice and relaxed and able to absorb that shock. Now I'm gonna practice them really short, because that's how short they gotta be when we're up to tempo. Try it with me this time. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Again. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Again, 1 E and a, 2 E and a. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. And so on and so forth. Always practice in slow motion with the proper technique. If the notes are fast, practice them super short. That way, when you speed it up, you don't lose control. Let's try it slightly under tempo together. 1 and and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now in this piece, we usually play quarter notes short with a little separation, right? But at 96, this is the exception to the rule. Check it out. We have a beautiful melodic line, and surely the composer wants the basses to sing out here. It's just too good to miss. So we also have to finger this in a way that all the notes can be connected and not short. So we're going to play open D and first finger F, and then that way we have the C sharp without shifting. So open D, F, C sharp, A, you have to shift for that one, then G, B flat, there's our E, let's slide on up, first finger D, fourth finger E. Let's try 96 through 103 under tempo. Make sure to play long and connected in the left hand and the right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just like our quarter notes, our eighth notes at 100 are going to be long. Usually the second eighth note of a slur is going to be a little bit shorter, but not in this case. Make sure to keep everything long and connected. It really is a beautiful part where the basses get to sing out loud and proud. Basses, just a few more things. We are almost there. Take a look at measure 104. At the end of 104, it says Dies al Coda. So that means we're going to go back to the del segno, which we find at measure 22. From measure 22, we're going to continue playing through the piece until we arrive at the coda at the end of measure 60. Then instead of playing measure 61, we're going to jump all the way to the last page again, back to the coda to measure 106. Now 106 is a fortissimo. This is the loudest dynamic in the piece. So this is the one time in the piece that we're allowed to get a little harsh or a little ugly. Now, when you're playing this loud, I highly recommend, instead of playing on the G string first position, play on the D string and use your first finger. Just like D is on the G string, first finger, A is right there on the D string. So play that one and you can get a little more sound out of it, get closer to the bridge, and make sure to whip your arm and this time sustain it. Unlike the SFP where we let go and went back to piano, this time hold on to that note. Here we go, here's an example of 106. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So as you can see, it's pretty harsh, but I'm really using my back muscle to pull that string, not only side to side, but back into my body so that I can get that heftiness that is asked for at that passage. Try it with me this time. Here we go, 106. We're gonna set it, whip it, and then rip it. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. At 110, I just want to point out that we have an A and an E played at the same time. You can do that on your bass. Play open A and first finger E, that's first position, and you can play both notes at once. It sounds pretty epic. Then at measure 111, we have the same thing, D and A. So put your first finger on the G string. Just want to point out that at 111, it's pretty convenient. If you have your first finger on A on the G string, well, basically, A flat is under your fourth finger on the E string. C is second finger A string, and A and D are right there in the same position. That seems like a big gap, but it's actually all there in first position. And last but not least, we have a high E flat in this piece. So once again, first finger D on the G string, check it against your open D to find it, and then your second finger is going to be that E flat. And then things get really hazardous at measure 115, where we have these fast notes, these eighth notes, and slurred, and we introduce the C sharp as well. So we'll have E flat D, and then we're gonna have to shift for that C sharp D. E flat D, C sharp, B flat. Another tricky shift here is from F sharp to E flat. You're just gonna have to shift it. F sharp. Remember that when you hold down the F sharp, your first finger should be firm on the E. That way it's actually able to shift. If you're just hanging on for dear life with your pinky, you're gonna end up hopping and you're gonna miss the note. Let's try pickup into measure 113 at a nice slow tempo. That means we're gonna start on the 4th beat on that up bow D. Make sure to keep your first finger firm as we slide from first position all the way up to first finger D. We're covering a lot of ground, but if you stay connected to the bass, you'll find those notes. Let's try it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Let's go even slower for this super difficult passage at 115. Notice that we have to do a retake. The measure before, the G ends on an up bow. There's a rest and we have to get back to an up bow. Let's try 115 super slow. I'm just gonna count 3, 4, 1. 3 and 4 and 1 and. Alright basses, this is a challenging piece, but make sure to listen to the music so you feel it, you understand it, and that way when you go to practice, it's much more natural. As for all the technical things, just take it super slow. I promise if you go super slow, it'll just get faster over time. Make sure to check out the play along video so we can play this piece together and get our practice in. Until then, see you next time.